Okay, let's do sound checks in the room. Let's start with Steve.
Hello.
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 Hello. Hello.
Hi.
Live from New York, it's Saturday Night Live.
Hello.
Hello.
Live and well.
Recording in progress.
Okay, good evening, everybody, and welcome to our second meeting of June for 2022. We will call this meeting to order. And before we start, I would ask that we have a moment of reflection. Okay, thank you. All right, first item up is to confirm the agenda as it was sent out on the weekend. Do we have a mover and seconder for that? Moved by Councillor Fink, seconded by Councillor Rose. All those in favor? That is carried. Does anybody have a conflict of interest with the agenda or anything on the agenda tonight? Okay, if you find yourself getting in troubled waters as we go through the meeting, you can declare it at that time. There are 5 items on the consent agenda. Is there anything there that anybody would like a little more information on or would like to have it pulled and dealt with separately? If not, I don't see anybody's hands going up. If not, a motion that we accept the consent agenda would be in order. Moved by Councillor Bell, seconded by Councillor Murray. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. So we do have no delegation here tonight, but we do have a report for planning. And at this time, I'm going to ask Louisa Vacondio, I think. I get her first name right. I'm not sure if I got the last name right, but Louisa, there we are. Good. And I remember you from before, so.
Yeah, it was nice to see you again, Mayor McKenzie.
I massacred your last name the last time too.
That's
so.
Okay. Not a problem. Yeah, it's Louisa Vacondio. Yes, thank you again. I've done this before, but here I am at it again. I'm happy to present this staff report to West Perth Council. So this planning application is for a consent application to sever a property within Mitchell. So the owners of the lands at 197 and 199 Colton Drive have applied to sever these lands, which contain an existing semi-detached dwelling in order to create 2 separate lots, each with half of the semi-detached dwelling. So the subject property is currently fully serviced with municipal water, sewer, and storm drainage systems, and each unit is separately metered. The proposed severed parcel is the interior lot with an approximate area of 381.5 square meters with frontage along Colton Drive. In addition to the semi-detached dwelling, so the one half of the semi-detached dwelling, the severed lot would contains an existing shed structure and a storage tent, which is proposed to be removed. The proposed retained parcel is the corner lot with an approximate area of 374.1 square meters and frontage along Colton Drive. In addition to the semi-detached dwelling, the retained lot also contains 2 steel sheds that are also proposed to be removed. The proposed lot configuration and location of these structures is shown in the site visit photos within this plan report, as well as on the attached schedules at the end. With regards to policy review, section 1.1.3.1 of the provincial policy statement states that settlement areas shall be the focus of growth and development, and vitality and regeneration of these areas shall be promoted. In accordance, the proposed severance contributes to the development within a settlement area. Property is designated serviced urban area within the Mitchell ward of the county official plan. The county official plan provides that development within Mitchell shall be in accordance with the Mitchell ward official plan. So moving down to the Mitchell ward official plan, the subject property is within the residential designation of this official plan, and the proposed severance meets the consent and severance policies of the official plan contained within section 17.3.2, which include and are not limited to meeting the following requirements. So that the lands are serviced or capable of being serviced, that the parcel size is appropriate for the use, that the proposed severance does not leave residual lands, that the lots have adequate access to a public road, that compatibility with surrounding land uses is maintained, and that the application is in conformity with the zoning bylaw. The subject property is zoned R1 in the West Perth zoning bylaw, which does not permit a semi-detached dwelling. Semi-detached units are actually permitted in the R3 zone. So given that this proposed severance is in substantial conformity with the provisions of the R3 zone, one of the proposed conditions of approval for the severance that the county is proposing would require that a zoning bylaw amendment be completed for both the severed and retained lands in order to rezone the lands to the appropriate zone and apply any site-specific provisions as needed. So furthermore, section 513 of the West Perth zoning bylaw also permits that existing non-complying setbacks or provisions that are existing previous to the date of passing of zoning bylaw can continue. So in this regard, the existing non-complying front yard setback can continue. In summary, the proposed severance application is consistent with the 2020 provincial policy statement, is in conformity with the applicable policies of the County of Perth official plan, and represents good planning. Staff have reviewed this application against the applicable requirements of the local official plan and have concluded that the proposed severance is in conformity with the Mitchell Ward official plan and subject to the recommended conditions of consent approval contained within the report. So with regards to agency or public comments, no agency or public comments have been received by the county at this point in time. That is the summary of the application and the staff report. I'm happy to take any questions if council has any.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from members of council? Go ahead, Doug.
I have a question. Does there have to be a hydro easement on one of the properties? Because both are hydros are at the back. Do we do that? Because planning is a tough one, or does that site plan?
So, sorry, through you, Mayor Mackenzie, there wouldn't be a site plan in place in this regard. I think if that were a concern, if a hydro easement were a concern, that would have been likely brought up by a comment from the agencies. We haven't received anything, therefore, we have to assume there's no issue with that regard.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, I don't see anybody's hands going up. So with your permission, I'll read the recommendation. And there was 8 conditions and they were circulated with the agenda last week. So I'm hoping, or last weekend. So I'm assuming everybody's read the 8 conditions and you're in agreement with that, and I won't read all that tonight. And we'll be out of here before 10 o'clock then. So the recommendation is the Council of the Municipality of West Perth receives the report entitled Application for Consent to Sever number B0822 by William and James Spence, affecting lands described as Lot 21, Plan 366, the Mitchell Ward, Municipality of West Perth, 197 and 199 Colton Drive, Mitchell, dated June the 20th, 2022, prepared by the consulting planner for the County of Perth for information, and that the Council of the Municipality of West Perth recommends to the County of Perth Land Division Committee approve the application for consent to sever B0822 for lands described as Lot 21, Plan 366, Mitchell Ward, Municipality of West Perth, 197 and 199 Colton Drive, Mitchell, subject to the following 8 conditions, and they're all listed there. So do I have a mover and seconder for that recommendation? Councillor Rose, thank you. Seconder? Councillor Duck? Any discussion? All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. Thank you, Louisa.
Thank you, Mayor Mackenzie. Have a good night.
So the next item then is the Chief Building Officials Report. And so we have Bob on up. I've never seen it look so good, Bob. And give us your Building Inspector's Report.
Thank you, Mayor Mackenzie. For the month of May, we had just under $4 million in construction value, posted 27 permits and 7 zoning certificates for the month. Permits are listed.
Any questions with regards to the permits? Okay. Anything else, Bob, at this time?
Just a comment that we're seeing lots of investment into the agricultural community across the board. all venues of livestock, beef, chickens, turkeys, dairy, pigs. It's a pretty brisk industry out there. Residential continues to be a very strong focus, and we do have some highway commercial and industrial coming on shortly.
Okay, very good. Thanks, Bob. So the recommendation that we have here is that West Perth accepts the May permit summary report as information. Do we have a mover and seconder for that? Councillor Jankowski, and seconded by Councillor Harold. Very good. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. Okay, moving on, we have Darcy with the Recreation Facilities and Parks report. So Darcy?
Thank you, Mayor McKenzie. So my activity report is first. I'll just highlight a few things. On the pool project, we did get the heater working at full capacity today. We are dealing with the filter issues as mentioned in the report. We will have to shut down the pool for 3 days, and it's probably going to be next week. We have communications lined up for everybody and some plans for the lost swimming lessons, but we will have to close for 3 days to do a switch over to get the new filters up and operational. That's just due to when we try to backwash the pool, we get sand in the pool because the laterals have given way on the old filters. So we will be doing that project next week. The Ketterson Park, we are still working with the Diamond B to get it back in full shape. But we are working with the user groups, and it seems to be in a better situation now. And we do have Fortress Fencing coming in July to do a lot of the fencing. Summer day camp, actually, we just lost a staff this morning to another summer employment. So we are, the ad went back out today. We are back in the market for another day camp staff, because as you can see, it's a very full, we're at capacity most days with wait lists. So we need all the staff we can get. So we are back out with an ad that went out today. And then the youth center programming has been great. We actually see a steady increase in numbers all the time, which has been excellent. So I'll gladly take any questions.
Okay, thanks, Darcy. Any questions for Darcy on the activity report? Mike, go ahead.
So the pool is open now, Darcy? Like I heard today it was closed. Was that due to the rain for swimming lessons?
Yeah, that would have been a weather thing during the day, but it's open now. Yep.
Thank you.
Councillor Jankowski, did you have a question?
Through you, your worship, I didn't see it mentioned on this report, Darcy. Could you give us a brief update on the revised drawings and tender submission for the Ketterson Park Pavilion, please?
Yeah, actually, I just got off the phone with Nelson about an hour ago. He will have the revised copy of the drawings to me by Wednesday, and we're hoping that either Wednesday or Thursday we'll be going out to the 5 bidders and give them 3 weeks to rebid.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, I don't see any more hands up, so we do have a recommendation here that we accept the activity report as information. We have a mover and seconder for that. Councillor Matheson and Councillor Murray, all those in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. And the next one is an update on Cooper Field.
Yes, so I do have Doug Wolf here with me. He is the chair of the Cooper Field Committee as well as past president of Minor Ball. So if there's any questions I can't answer, I will pass it over to Doug to answer. He's behind me here, behind this wall. But as I said, in the background kind of states of how we got to where we are. The committee has put their own funds into doing some of the project. They've done the layout. They're willing to skin it off, and they're just asking for the municipality to help out with some other stuff, as noted in my report. And we're looking for $30,000 from the Parkland Reserve to assist in the building of the new ball diamond. The layout is attached to the report. And it is a little bit closer to the dog park than we'd like, but we do need to worry about the sun angle too. We don't want to get where the sun is in the third baseman's face all the time. So we are looking at the sun angle. We would just have this as a practice field to start, so it wouldn't be a full field. We're just looking to get it up and running as a practice field for the kids to practice on. And then if it did become a full field, then we would just do the work that we need to do to the dog park to ensure that the safety of the dog park and the people in it. but I think we would be able to manage that. I'll gladly take any questions, or Doug is here as well to take questions.
Right. Any questions for Darcy or Doug on Cooper Field? Okay, don't see anybody's hand going up. So the recommendation that I have here is that the municipality of West Perth approve the location of the additional ball diamond to be built at the Cooper Field, and that the council commit to provide funds not to exceed 30,000 from the Parkland reserves to assist in the building of the new ball diamond at Cooper Field. We have a mover and seconder for that motion, moved by Nicholas Fink and seconded by Murray Rose. All those in favor? Opposed, if any, that is carried. Thank you. Push.
Can you hear me now? Okay, so this is the budget to actual report for the up to the end of the month of May, and we're 42% through the year, and it looks like we're sitting at 11 million in revenue and 8 million in expenses, so we're roughly 3 million to the good. Nothing really stood out to me in the report. Some of the distributions like last month still need to happen. We're just focusing on getting the 2021 year end done and audit. So once that's done, we'll be able to look at those distributions. If there's any questions, I gladly take them.
Okay, questions for Wendy on budget to actual? Councillor Jankowski.
Wendy, do you have an approximate idea of when the auditing might be completed for 2021?
The audit's in really good shape. We're just kind of wrapping some things up. The auditors just have some final checks and balances to do, and then it'll be off for review. So we're using a portal. It's all done virtually right now, and so we've uploaded everything, just some small little things that are outstanding, but we're looking pretty good.
Hey, anybody else? Questions? All right, so the recommendation that I have here is that the municipality of West Perth accepts the West Perth budget to actual as of May 31st, 2022 report as information. I have a mover and seconder for that. Councillor Murray and Councillor Duck. All those in favor? Opposed, if any, that is also carried. Thank you very much, Wendy. All right, moving on, CAO's report, and he's got a lot of charging information tonight.
Thank you very much, Mayor McKenzie. It's it's electrifying report, I think is. I want to start out by just acknowledging that both the report 6.1 and 6.2 were co-written by myself and Hannah Can, our executive coordinator. So Hannah has taken over that executive coordinator position in addition to learning a new role. Hannah comes with some background in resources management that makes her very well suited to helping us with the climate change work that we're doing. And Hannah was willing to take on the work for this report because of that background. And also she has a lot of personal experience being the owner of a plug-in electric vehicle. And I think Hannah is the sort of illustration of the sort of consumer that we should expect, and the kind of staff person that we should expect in the future. We'll be wanting to come up with ways to find this balance of what we provide as a municipality for our staff as infrastructure to support them working for us, and our counselors and our visitors to the office, and then how that integrates with the overall network. So I'm going to speak about the first report, and I want to say the first report, and so Hannah's name should have been on that first report. It just got missed when we published it. That first report really sets the regional network and talks about the importance of looking at the distribution of EV charging units, whether they be DC chargers, level 3 chargers that are the fast chargers, or level 2 chargers, which take more time, the 240 volt chargers. That report really focuses on the distribution across the 6 counties that cooperated in assessing this. The initiative was done that way in order to allow us to look at it on the bigger picture, because without that, looking at it on a 6-county basis, it would have been very incremental. And the 6 counties was kind of the scale we can handle without it being uncontrollable by trying to include all of southwestern Ontario. So the scale made sense. The report and the original report came from the County of Wellington, which has really led this initiative, along with the City of Guelph, which is part of the County of Wellington, and certainly through our association with the Perth County municipalities, the City of Stratford and the Town of St. Mary's and the County of Perth, we were able to leverage off of that for the work through the climate change work and pick up this work with the same staff person until we recently lost that contract, and it's been taken over and looked after by North Perth and West Perth since then, and now mostly Hannah. So the main takeaway from the first report is to provide council with the context of the overall initiative, which that report describes, and to identify that we are planning to participate in a grant application for 1 level 3 charger in Mitchell. And it will be the second wave. If you read through that detailed report, the first wave, so in other words, probably the first implementation year would be one in North Perth, and then the level 3 DC charger pedestal unit would be the second year in West Perth. The siting information is preliminary, and I've submitted a recommendation for council that council supports the submission of the grant. So we have that looked after. We have that letter of support looked after, and endorse the preliminary site locations for 1 level 3 DCFC pedestal unit. And I'd be happy to take any questions if there are any.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. Councillor Rose, question.
I'm reading here, Jeff, for the level 3 is approximately 150,000 to install. Is that correct?
Yes, the current estimate for level 3 DC charger, fast charger, is about $150,000. It came from the report. So we should, I should offer a few. I expect that the concern is how do we finance something like that, and it's not going to be West Perth that finances that. So the DC network with the 6 county partners, the next step will be that they will submit the grant to get 50% federal grant money for the DC chargers, for the fast chargers. And then that'll cut the price down to 75. And then at the same time, they will procure per unit. They will procure the contract for the company that will provide these DC chargers. So you almost have to imagine that these are little mini gas stations distributed across our landscape on little postage size parking spots in our communities as you move through southwestern Ontario in this case. So the local share would be paid for by someone like Earth, and I expect that Earth Corporation might be a participant in that procurement to deliver, install, operate, and maintain, and look after all the infrastructure, the communications infrastructure and everything for each of those 17 chargers. So that will be procured. I'm not positive that Earth, it's a little north of Earth's area, but Earth is very interested in this business area for them as a business line. And so we expect that they're certainly tracking it. And so that local investment would come from Earth in this case of the DC chargers.
Another question, Mark?
And it would be user pay.
And I should say that local investment would come from a company like Earth, not, I shouldn't say definitely Earth. I think that's a bit presumptuous. And yes, on the level 3 DC charger, and I think philosophically across the whole charging network, municipalities, particularly when it comes to operating them for staff, I think we have to keep our eye on the user pay principle. so that we don't get into inequities where we put them in out there and the municipality is subsidizing or the provider is subsidizing, and then you got people sort of searching out low prices and kind of value shopping. And even in the community, when we get to level 2 chargers, I think we want to just be aware of cost recovery on these, because it's obviously going to be a new business line and a new way for us to consume energy.
Councillor Murray, go ahead.
I'm curious about the charger that's downtown on the corner of David and the Main Street. What kind of a charger is that?
So the current charger we have at St. David is 2-unit level 2 charger. So it's the 240 volt AC charger. It can take 6 to 8 hours to get a full charge. And so we don't have a level 3 charger. And that's one of the reasons we got identified. There are a few in the area, but they're not very common. It's a cost point thing, as Murray has pointed out. And so, you know, in order to support, we are at the intersection of 2 provincial highways, and that's why we were identified, I believe, for a level 3 charger as part of the regional network.
Other questions? No? Okay. We do have a recommendation here, and it is that the municipality of West Perth accepts the regional EV charging infrastructure report as information, and that the council supports the submission of a grant application to the federal zero emission vehicle infrastructure program and endorse the preliminary site locations for 1 level 3 DCFC pedestal unit. We have a mover and seconder, Councillor Duck, and a seconder, Councillor Murray. Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
the next one then is the West Perth EV charging infrastructure.
Thank you, Mayor McKenzie. I'll then move into report 6.2, which is again a report that was jointly prepared by Hannah Ken and myself. And I should mention that Hannah is on the call as a panelist if there's any questions. I'd love it if you asked Hannah a question. So if you have a question and you want to refer it to Hannah, just let us know. That should put some pressure on her. So the second report, that level 3 charger regional analysis was really focused on the needs for tourism and the needs for broad economic development, and the concept that we don't want people to be shying away from going through Mitchell or going through this part of Ontario because they have an EV vehicle and the charge point doesn't line up. And it paid attention to factors such as, I call it soak time or dwell time when they're at a charger. If they're on that, you don't want to be having to wait 6 or 8 hours to get your charge. That's the place for the fast chargers. To take this to the next step, the municipalities and other employers in the area, and also to support tourism and economic development, we have to start to think about the development of our level 2 network. And the level 2 network, those chargers come at a significantly lower cost, and you have to be aware of the appropriate dwell times and therefore the considerations for siting. And if that's all you have, you would hope that people who come to visit our community would incorporate in a 3-hour, 4-hour, 6-hour stop and charge time. And in those cases, logically, you want those chargers located near amenities where people could conceivably be planning to spend 3, 4, 6, or 8 hours of time. And so from a tourism, economic development, visitor standpoint, the downtowns are obvious choices as well. But you also then can expand out to areas like arenas and community centers where people might plan a stay or a trip and bring their electric vehicle and want to have access to a charging station, and they could use level 2 because they would have a prolonged stay. And then that got us thinking about our own facilities. And this aligns very nicely with work that we're doing at West Perth to plan for the municipal office and making sure we have infrastructure in place for our current needs, but also making sure we design our parking lots so that we don't have to tear them up in 5 years. So with the assistance of the building working group, we've designed the parking configuration for the new municipal office to put conduit in to allow, well, actually the conduit is in to allow all the spaces to be powered up for EV. But realistically, we would probably want to know that if you think 10, 15 years and all the vehicles coming off the line, or almost all the vehicles coming off the line are EV, you would want to be able to support that. So we put conduit in, conduit's cheap. We got thinking we should start doing a little work on talking to staff, and with the ZVIP deadline that's coming up, Hannah took the initiative to develop a survey so that we could consult staff, and we decided to include council on it because council is a regular visitor at the office and could be a target for wanting access to a charger. So we designed the survey to obtain input from council and staff. And I think you can see from the broad summary, and I'll note that we just realized that the attachment wasn't included with the report, and we'll circulate the attachment of the detailed results. But the uptake is fairly high, and it's probably not surprising that municipal employees and councillors are early adopters of this kind of technology. And looking at people's current vehicles and also what they plan to buy, it's not surprising at all to think that people are looking at it, especially in this current environment of high gasoline prices or high fuel prices. And I would also mention that our survey is just from the last 3 or 4 weeks, whereas the survey that was done by the regional network was 6 to 9 months ago. And a lot has changed in those 6 to 9 months. I think if we redid that regional network survey now, you might see more uptake. Changes from the industry reporting that they're going to bring more models online, right through to changes in the price of fuel due to various factors driving the urgency for people to look at the option of changing. So the takeaway from this report is that we've looked at the infrastructure for the new municipal office, and knowing the current ownership without even paying attention to the ownership that could come in the next 3 years for our staff, and also thinking ahead about the fact that we, for example, have a fleet vehicle parked outside of this office, which is from the building department. And if you have a fleet vehicle and don't have a place to plug it in, you can't go EV. While we may not have an EV choice for a fleet vehicle for building right now, it's likely one will become available in the next couple of years. And so to get the grant, to do the implementation, for the delay, we have to plan to start to do it now. And it occurred to us while we were also doing this and speaking to Earth, because Earth approached us and asked if we'd like to go in on an application with them, because we need 20 units, and 20 is way more than we would want to do here, although we're recommending 10. It occurred to us that we're also looking at the pavilion project, and very easily we're going to bring a new consolidated power source into the pavilion. We have parking spaces that in that parking lot can support EV, and we can run conduit in the Ketterson Park parking lot to start to plan for EV there without having to rip up the lot. And of course, that is a location that could have significant dwell times for people who come for hockey tournaments or events at the community center and things like that. So in talking to Earth about this and talking about our configuration, our preliminary planning would be that we plan for a bank of 4 chargers in the public and staff parking lot, because it will be a public parking lot, although it'll be targeted to staff and overflow for council meetings off the St. David Street entrance. 2 chargers in the front of the building, which would be more targeted for visitors from right now, if the provincial ministries come to visit, they often come with EV vehicles. The province has moved over, and they'll be asking if there's a charger nearby that they can grab a charge from. And of course, then I think we'll plan for immediately a bank of 4 chargers over at the community center arena parking lot, which would be able to be worked in as part of the pavilion project. So this report came together very quickly at the end of last week. The application deadline's getting short, but the realization about how high the demand was for the municipal staff is a bit of a surprise. And so I'm not going to say that we won't be looking at tweaking the locations, and I have to have more conversation with Earth, but I'm asking council to support a recommendation that we go in on the grant, and also that we aim for 10 in the general location of our municipal campus here. And finally, on the topic of finances and ownership, the level 2 chargers are not part of the application that's being made by the regional network. They're up to us. And that's why Earth is an important partner for us. And we would have the choice of financing the local share of level 2 chargers here, but I'm proposing that we commit to a model like the model that we have with the current Earth charger at the corner of St. David and Ontario Road, where Earth Corporation installed it. Earth Corporation are the experts in that. It becomes part of their asset management inventory. They have the expertise to install, own, operate, and support the network demands and make changes as necessary. So I'm proposing that we would also use Earth as the partner, which would mean Earth would set the rates. And again, Earth would presumably set those rates on a cost recovery basis. That's more in keeping with their line of business than ours. So that's the basis of the recommendations. I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. Any questions for Jeff or Hannah at this time? Did you do a good job, Hannah?
Yes, you did a great job. Thank you, Jeff.
Councillor Murray.
I was just wondering if you treat it like a gas station, does the charger, the company that owns the charger, do they pay rent for the land that the charger's on, so to speak? Or is that not a thing?
So under the current model, we're not charging for those spaces. And leveraging off of, or kind of using the current example with the space at the corner of St. David and Ontario Road, I think early days of these arrangements, it's really about responding to getting the infrastructure in place, and it's a service to your community, and they are public parking spaces in public locations. And we've tried to identify all locations that are on municipal land, and as a last resort, we would go to private land where there might be some expectation of compensation. But I believe in the first cycle of contracts, it'll be about providing the space for the charger. It may come to the point where those agreements are renegotiated and payments in exchange for the use of the space become relevant. But at this point in time, I think we would just lose out on the chargers if we tried to do that.
Any other questions? Oh, sorry, Steve, go ahead.
It's a pretty new thing, so it's going to be hard to answer this, but is there an estimate of the lifespan of one of those chargers?
Yes, I haven't had a conversation with Earth about it. I know Earth modeled out the technology, and while the technology is fairly new to us, it's been around for 10 or 12 years. I know that, if you think about that charger that's on a Tim Hortons in Exeter, it's been there for at least 6 years or 5 years, but it's broken now. And we've had one at Mitchell Cycle for quite some time here in Mitchell. And the reason we know where they are is there's an app, right? There's an app for this, and the apps are going to be interactive. The people who have the vehicles will be able to use the app to find them. And you have to know that when you think about, I don't think we'd want to get into a scenario where we put one in a municipal parking lot and try to have it only used during the business hours of the municipality. There could be people in the neighborhood that would be interested in using it, or it could be used, someone could go to Lockhart's and not be able to get into the one over at St. David and find on the app that there's one over here, drop the car off and walk. So I think if you're going to put them in, you make them public, you charge the going rate, you have a partner like Earth. And yes, I would think that Earth has some sense of their durability, but I don't know the answer.
Anna, you have a question or a comment? Go ahead.
Yes, I just wanted to recommend to council also that in the provincial studies for EVs, there are people who live in apartment buildings that don't have charging infrastructure yet own an EV. And these people have been called garage orphans. So with high density housing coming to Mitchell and within walking distance of the municipal parking lot, I can picture some of these people using our level 2 chargers as overnight charging locations. So they would be paying for their own charge, and then we would be supporting our community and having EVs, not just for visiting or during the day, but also to our residents.
Good point, Hannah. Thanks. Anybody else?
And if I can add something to that, Hannah, thanks for adding that, because that's a really good point. And I just last week was speaking to a few of our neighbors nearby the office here about the office project, and one of them expressed an interest in getting an EV charger that doesn't have the charge station or a garage. And I mentioned about, the conversation came up because I said we were looking at EV charging units, and they said, you surely wouldn't restrict people from the neighborhood coming to use those parking spaces, and there'd be no reason to restrict that. In fact, it would be an open market transaction, the same with our staff as it would be as our community. So they actually contribute great value. And in fact, these stations that would be off of the road and in our parking lots can be used in the wintertime, whereas our parking restrictions on stations that are on the main streets wouldn't allow those overnight parking in the wintertime. So it does add another bit of variety to our supply.
Okay, any further questions? All right, the recommendation we have here is that Municipality of West Perth accepts the West Perth EV charging infrastructure report as information, and that council supports the submission of a grant application to Federal Zero Emission Vehicle Infrastructure Program with Earth Corporation to add 10 level 2 electric vehicle charging units between the new municipal office and arena and community center parking lot locations, and that the council endorse the proposal that the new EV charging units will be owned and operated by Earth Corporation. We have a mover and seconder for that recommendation, Councillor Harold and Councillor Duck. Any further discussion on this topic? Okay, all those in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. Thank you. All right, moving on, we have correspondence. We have a letter from your neighborhood credit union wanting to host an outdoor barbecue for a fundraising event. And there is a recommendation there that we approve the request submitted by YNCU to host an outdoor barbecue fundraising event on September the 2nd at 105 Ontario Road in Mitchell. We have mover and seconder for that. Councillor Rose, Councillor Bell. All those in favor? That is carried. We do have a letter of thanks from the Optimist Club for the donation for the recent music festival. And then a letter from the Municipal Engineers Association regarding the retention of professional engineers at Ontario municipalities. And my take on that is that we don't really have a professional engineer employed on staff. We use the professionalism and the consulting engineers, but we don't have anybody on staff. And I think that's what they were referring to. Just as an aside, Dan, we did have a letter, and I'll let you maybe just explain it, from Steve Welcome for the BIA.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just forwarded a note to His Worship today of Steve Welcome, notified the BIA today, and perhaps Chair Bell would further comment, but maybe not. But anyways, he just put in his notice of retirement.
And that coincides with them selling their business downtown. So He is also relinquishing his duties on the BIA. So, yeah, good. All right. So recommendation then that municipality of West Perth accepts correspondence as information. We have a mover and seconder for that. Councillor Rose and Councillor Duck. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. Council reports, Maitland Valley Conservation Authority Memorandum of Understanding. Information is there. Is there something that you want to add? Maybe Councillor Matheson?
This is just the memorandum of understanding that was been brought forward in their inventory, and they're just looking to get everybody on their within their municipalities on the Maitland Valley to come together at the same time and have the same agreement dates. So right now there's currently 11 of the 15. There's probably us and a couple more this week that'll be on board, and then that'll be the 15 municipalities that they can get together on the same agreement.
Any questions regarding that? Okay, if not, we do have a recommendation here that Municipality of West Perth approves the memorandum of understanding between the Maitland Valley Conservation Authority and its municipality of West Perth, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign the agreement. Do you have a mover and seconder for that? Councillor Matheson and Councillor Jankowski. Or did you have a question, Dean? No, okay. All right, all those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Mitchell Business Improvement Area Board, the minutes from May the 4th are there. Sherry, anything you want to highlight?
No, you stole my thunder already. No, that's fine. Normally the BIA does meet in July, but we've decided to take the whole summer off this year and regroup in September. And that's probably the only change we have.
Okay, thanks, Sherry. Anything further? Nothing listed. Recommendation is that the municipality of West Perth accepts reports from councillors as information. Do we have a mover and seconder for that? Councillor Murray and Councillor Duck. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. The announcements are there. July the 11th is our next council meeting. Oh, bylaws. Where did I jump them? Oh, yeah, sorry, I did. All right, bylaws. We have a bylaw. Bylaw 47 is a bylaw to provide for the powers of entry on land for the purposes of carrying out inspections with regards to the bylaw enforcement people. Do you want to talk about that, Dan? Sorry, I missed that.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would just add for council that it's a bit of a housekeeping item. Authorities already granted largely through the property standards, which is what generally a bylaw enforcement officer would be entering a property for. And again, just to clarify, this is not entering a residence. This is just entering on property. So just pulling that delegated authority out of property standards, just putting it in a standalone bylaw. And I would just add for council as well, and anyone watching, that you'll notice the format of the bylaw and the confirmatory bylaw has been changed for what we normally use, and this is in response to accessibility standards. So this is this document is fully accessible and formatted as such to the standards set that the municipality needs to follow. So moving forward, our bylaws will look like this, and we're going to work on getting a graphic put in as well. But this is the new face of the bylaw.
Okay, thanks, Dan. Any questions for Dan on that? Okay, don't see any hands. So the recommendation is that Council Municipality of West Perth gives first, second, and third and final reading to bylaw 47 this 20th day of June 2022. Then mover and seconder for that bylaw. Moved by Councillor Rose and seconded by Councillor Tam. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. Thank you. And now, coming events. July the 11th will be our next meeting. And then again August the 2nd, and the 19th is nomination date. August the 22nd will be the follow-up council meeting, and then we're into September as our regular fall council meeting starts September 6th. Did want to mention that being June is Seniors Month, and we had planned on having Bill Nye here to present him with the Senior of the Year award, but Bill is in BC, I believe. So we will do that whenever he returns, probably next month, is it, Dan? And we'll do that. Better late than never, but pretty hard to present when the guy's not around. So there was one other thing we were going to mention, wasn't there, Dan? I can't off the cuff just think what it was now. And you had said maybe make a mention of it at the council meeting. Oh, I want to mention that. Thanks, Doug. Okay.
I just want to mention that on July 9th, we're having the official opening of the West Perth Fire Station, and you will have all received as councillors an invitation tonight. It's a by invitation event. You're welcome to bring your partner to the event, and if you have any questions, Chief Hunter can answer them. But it's Saturday, July the 9th in the morning, and if you can make it, we'd certainly like to have you attend.
Yeah, the other thing I wanted to mention is that there was I guess a gathering at the Fullerton Ballpark on the weekend for Terry Smith, and she's retiring, I think, this year after 50 years of looking after the ballpark. So I had asked Dan that we would do a letter of appreciation to her. You know, that's a fairly outstanding feat to complete. So yeah. Anything else? I know there's one more thing I was going to mention, and if I find it before the end of the meeting, I'll bring it up. But anyways, notices of motion, and we do have one from Councillor Vink.
Yeah, thanks, Walter. We've been discussing how to address the affordable and attainable housing issues for quite some time. So I thought I'd put it down on paper, because what would I like as a new councillor coming into the next council term is a report with some action items on how to deal with it. So I thought with some federal government money being announced, provincial government talking about it, why not put it all together in a report format for the next former council, so they can in report, so that they can make a decision with action items, say here are some wins on how to achieve it over the some short term, some long term to achieve and address that affordable housing issue. And so I had brought this forward last meeting, and I thought it would be a great opportunity to have staff get something together for the next council term, so that they would be able to have something in front of them with bullet points and action items to help address it in our community.
Okay, thanks, Nicholas. And I throw this out, and I didn't have a chance to talk to anybody about it, so I may get through under the bus on this one. But with regards to that, and Doug maybe has some information, because he's also our rep on the county affordable housing, but Listowel is maybe a step or two ahead of us on that. And I'm wondering if we could maybe invite the mayor or even their CAO to come to a council meeting and update us as to what they formed. And Doug, you maybe have a little bit more information on that if you want to share it.
Yeah, so for the last 2 years, the municipality of North Perth has been taking a 1% levy from their taxes, adding on and putting it away. And they joined forces with United Way, and they're renovating a building. Now, I think the United Way got most of the money because they won't say how it got split up. But it's in, I believe, is it an old school? There's a building in Listowel that they're going to renovate. Now they haven't said what affordability is. Might be $1,800 a month, might be affordable in Listowel. I don't know, but that's the projects that they have. There's also private, public. There's lots of programs like that where there's public people who can get a property. We used to call one of them. When we gave the lot away on Victoria Street. Habitat for Humanity was one. Our social housing next door to us is affordable and attainable because rent geared to income. So there's a lot of programs, but we will only meet once, and it has to do with our CIP program that we have to get in place before we can apply for some of it. So we have a meeting. It hasn't been called yet. Our doodle poll went out and I never got a response back from when we're having it, but we are having a meeting. Then it'll probably end because of the end of council, the election coming up in the fall, and there'll be a new committee struck in November, I'm assuming. But we can get there is a summer student at the county who actually is just doing a lot of work on the affordable housing. So we can get, if our Jeff takes that, we can get some help from them too.
Comment, Jeff? Go ahead.
Yes, I can add, and I think the notice of motion is extremely helpful because it gives us the mandate as staff to ramp up the conversations with other municipalities. I am aware of North Perth working through, and the 1% levy, or sort of the dedication of 1% levy to a fund to sort of support that is an innovative way to build the money and to sort of express a commitment to it. And I think a very clever way to ensure that council gets behind it. I have a couple of other comments. I think as a municipality of West Perth and as a town of Mitchell as our main growth center, it's hard to do this in the absence of a regional perspective. So I feel very strongly about the value of the county committee and the concept of the county committee going for a community improvement program bylaw that will allow the sort of planning county-wide. I think you'll see that as a part of the mix. And I did, I picked this up at the OMAA conference I went to lately, which was actually an extraordinarily good agenda, and there should be, I guess, after 2 years of not having it. But Bruce County is facing a lot of the same challenges, and they've got a toolkit that they've put out, and I'd like to talk to county economic developments and county planning about the integration with the Bruce County toolkit. But what struck me about the Bruce County toolkit, there's, how do you calculate what's affordable and attainable? And some of those things are in the toolkit. But the thing that the main strategy, the sort of number one strategy in that toolkit is to strongly promote diversity and options and density in housing types. And as a council and as a municipality, I think we've really encouraged increased density and diversity of housing in land use planning applications that we've made in the last number of months, or the last even that's been a focus of mine for 3 years now, and it takes time to work them through. But as you see development applications we're approving here, there's been much more diversity, much less conventional single family residential, and the pendulum's almost swung so far that when someone comes in with just single family residential, we start to ask questions about whether they've considered the other, the more dense options, or how they've built in options for affordability or second rental units to help with mortgages and things like that. So I think we're on that part of the strategy. We certainly have more to do, but I think that the supply of more diversity is going to really help. And I think you'll see development applications come forward over the summer that will really show you that we're making great strides in that area. It's not enough, but it's a step in the right direction.
Okay. Any other comments at this time? So I'm going to take a little step backwards because Nicholas, he moved the notice of motion, but I didn't get a seconder. And we've had a fairly good discussion, so it shouldn't be too hard to get a seconder on this now. Moved by, or seconded by Councillor Trinkowski. Thank you. All right. Any further discussion then? All right. Okay. All those in favor of that motion? And that is carried unanimously. Thank you. All right. I don't believe that we have closed session tonight. We do? No, I didn't think we did. No, okay. So that brings us down to the confirmatory bylaw. That's bylaw 48, 2022, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council, corporation, and the municipality of West Perth for the meeting dated this 20th day of June, 2022. I'm a mover and seconder for that, Councillor Rose and Councillor Matheson. Thank you. All those in favor? That is carried. Oh, I didn't. No. Before we leave, yes, I just want to remind everybody about the homecoming weekend in Moncton this weekend. I meant to do that under coming event, so we talked about it and then I forgot. So yeah, big 3-day weekend. Looks like the weather's going to be good for them, and they've done a lot of work on it. Certainly have done a lot of research and one thing and another. So it looks like it's going to be a good weekend. Oh, sorry, Murray, go ahead.
I would also like to announce we have planned a concert in the park for July 10th from 2 to 4. And Randy Satchel is playing.
Already had one concert with the Legion Band there. Was it a week ago? It was in the park, was it not? Two weeks ago. Oh, it was in the park, I do believe. Yeah. Yeah. And I wasn't there either. I had something else on that day, but I saw it on the sign. It was advertised on our sign. So, yeah. Okay. We did pass the confirmatory bylaw. Okay. So we motion to adjourn. Recommendation is that we adjourn our council meeting at 8:07, I believe. Do we have a mover and seconder for that? Councillor Rose, Deputy Mayor Wright. All those in favor? That is carried. So we are adjourned. Good. Thank you.